In this video, I'd like to discuss the meaning and nature of existence, and existence as being an individual entity associated with the surrounding space that we're related to. And in particular, I want to talk about this aspect of existing in relation to existence, in which existing tends to form a mode of being here in the now and present, and attentive to the very contents of our direct existing experiences. And through these existing experiences that we have through our direct perceptions and our sense of the environment, we come to form the characters and an understanding of what it's like to be an individual, and which shapes the very meanings that we perceive directly to us as individuals, and which also resonates with the certain things that hang us in ways that can cause various meaning crises internal to us, in which we're attempting to resolve and regulate in association with things like what we should do with our lives, what's meaningful to us, what's important, what's valuable, what is a necessity for me to live well. What is it like to live well? What are the good qualities and states of being? These are all have very existential components to them, or existence, E-X-I-S-T-E-N-T, existence, not existence as in being, but existence as in having components of being, and which characterize us as unique individuals through this self-modal process that is direct through our perceptions and have to do with our understanding of the soul and the self, our personal, individualized, solo understanding of that that can be separate from that, or in which we might draw from or be inspired from external sources, but is ultimately a very individualized, spiritual, and individuated, separate action, because this is happening within the existential mode, right? Has to pertain with our existence and our being in relation to a surroundings that's separate from both nature and the environment, but is ultimately fundamentally has its own nature, a distinct nature. And this is at the heart of understanding meaning. We are both natural and synthetic beings, and it's through this understanding of the existential mode that we often come to form these syntheses and understanding the natural synthetic process, not just the synthetic process, but the natural synthetic process in relation to the synthetic process as more of this. You can think of it as an extended synthetic process, or synthetic process in and of itself that has aspects of fabrication or ways of categorizing it. It's not so much that there's no you can say cooking synthetic, for example, or you could say writing synthetic, or you can say exercise is synthetic. These are all synthetic activities, right? And they have natural components to them, but there's degrees in which we can further synthesis. And as we further synthesis, what becomes useful there is categorization, not creating a new category of these fundamental universal processes that have these objective characters to them in relation to the existential mode and what is true directly to our first-person experiences and consciousness, in particular the nature of perceptual consciousness. There's these two components that are fundamental to that, the natural synthetic and the synthetic process. And then there's going to be layers to that in which we can help to categorize the different processes of synthetic meaning creation that is built up and composed from empirical meaning that's direct to our sensory precepts that have an aspect of the nature of self that's connected to the nature of what's external to us and exterior to us, involving the corporeal and incorporeal elements, having bodily aspects and behavioral aspects in relation to physical external objects that are exterior and external to us as individuals, and which we form subject-object relations that allow us to establish meaning through those understandings of those relations and form these psychological understandings of these subjectivity, objectivity relations, or object-subject relations, through more of these perceptual processes. But also, when it comes to psychology, we're more exclusively looking at that subjective-objective relationship rather than subject-object relationship, which pertains more to direct perceptions and a direct perceptual psychology. So it's connected to psychology for sure, but it's not the same. It's separate, and it's fundamental to direct perceptual philosophy. And I'll make that distinction clear, but there are definitely links between those two, and those links are important because they form the basis of parallelisms between the existential school and various schools of philosophy that's interested in responding to these questions of existence, that's related and relational to our conscious perceptual experiences and what it's like to be an individual and live a meaningful life and a purposeful life, which are very, very, really important for both these, or for all these schools of thought regarding the natural, synthetic, and also the synthetic process that has been implicit up until, as I've posited recently, because there's a deep understanding of synthesis and the Hegelian synthesis in terms of postulating a thesis and an antithesis and then formulating a synthesis from that, but that's not the same as meaning that's direct to our perceptual experiences and related to this mode of existence and existential being and the existence of the self that is distinct from that, but also very, very related to it, and primarily uncovered through existential questioning and philosophizing. But existentialism has more to do with a sense of a person's way of viewing themselves and an identity. It's particularly an existential identity that we can create for ourselves. But it's more about a way of characterizing the self too, and how we go about viewing the self in relation to direct meaning that's internal to our perceptions. So it's this meaning that's fundamental to how we express ourselves, and it's through these self-expressions that we form authentic identities. And existentialists are less concerned with the problem of identity and more concerned with the problem of meaning and the self in relation to meaning, and how we should live a meaningful life as individuals, with a distinct existence that's related to the sense of being, essence, in relation to an existence that encompasses us and which also individuates us from others. And in viewing others, we can recognize and start to differentiate ourselves from them and understand these both universal as well as distinct, individualized, individuating values that can help us tap into our strengths and what allows us to flourish and enjoy a more meaningful life through being able to understand more deeply the contents of what it means to be and to exist and have a sense of purpose and purposefulness within life, and to start to be able to develop greater intentions for ourselves that are directed in more of these self-optimizing and regulatory directions that tend to have a more positive overall benefit towards our well-being, and which can lead us to a deeper understanding of the nature of existence and closer to what is true and meaningful to us as individuals and what is ultimately true, and also help us to engage in more of these contemplative practices, which most of the existentialists and the philosophers and the thinkers on this, including myself, tend to find also as an encompassing positive experience in relation to the philosophizing work that's being done there through the working activity of the mind, but also the pleasure and the leisureliness from being able to understand the expansiveness of existence and what it means to perceive meaning direct to our experiences, that tends to be open and lead to more of these greater possibilities and entailments for our well-being in relation to the existence that we find to be satisfying, and satisfying particularly of the appetites in regards to the self, in which are related to the system of meaning, interest, purpose, intentions, and intentionality that helps to facilitate a greater sense of self-directedness in the world, in more of this optimizing direction and free-flowing direction in which we tend to course our waywards. So that's all I wanted to say. I hope you enjoy. Have a good one.